Hi everybody, it's Nikki here and welcome to a bookish video. So today we have my August reading wrap up, which is where I talk about all the books that I read in the month of August and I give you my thoughts and opinions on them. I will not be talking about any synopses in this video because I go through that in my TBR video at the beginning of the month. So if you are wondering what any of these books are actually about, then either go to Goodreads or Amazon or any bookseller website where they might give you a synopsis, or you can go back and watch my Bookgammon TBR month for the month of August where I speak about them. So I will give you my stats and information at the end of the video because some of these stats might be spoilerish. So let's get into the first book that I read in August. Well, actually, not the first book I read because I DNF'd it. This is Fairy Wars by Herbie Brennan and I got about, let me just check my notes. I got to page 190 in this book out of 368. So I only really had about 170, 180 pages left. So I was about halfway through and oh my God, I was so bored. My notes say, took too long to go nowhere. I don't care for the characters or the plot or the ending. It shouldn't have taken 4 days to read 190 pages. Yes, when I picked this up, I was like, I don't care. I'm not interested. I liked the idea of this young boy who discovers a fairy and he's trying to help him, and I will say that it started off really interesting, but then it just went and just I know, so I DNF'd it. And I do have the second book, which is The Purple Emperor, so I'm unhauling them both. So I have removed 2 books off my TBR in the month of August because I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. It's an old copy, so the pages are very yellowed, but I don't mind that. It doesn't bother me. It's an old book, and it read like it was an old book. That's the thing. This was written back in, oh, it's only 2003. Mind you, I say it's only 2003, but 2003 was still 19 years ago. That's a long time ago. I still think like 2003 was like 5-10 years ago. It's not, it's 19. So I mean, it's an old book and it reads like it's an old book, you know, that old white man kind of fantasy. That's what this was. So that is that. The next book I read was actually, I believe, from my July TBR, but I didn't quite finish it in July, so I finished it in August. It is Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. Why is that all dirty? Why are you dirty? Anyway, clean him up a bit. So this was written by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan, Maureen Johnson and Robin Wasserman, and yeah, it's such a chonker, and this is basically just a lot of like short stories almost, but still following some kind of plot, because we have Simon at the Shadowhunter Academy. So my notes say Simon's schooling to become a Shadowhunter, making friends with Nephilim and the Mundanes, but also stories about other characters too. A great addition to the Shadowhunter world. I actually, although this did take me from July to August to finish, I actually flew through this once I actually started reading it. It didn't feel like it was dragging like most of the other Shadowhunter books that I've read. So I would say this one is actually one of my favourites in the series. I gave it 4 stars and yeah, I really enjoyed it. But then I'm not surprised because Simon is my favourite character. So a whole book about Simon, all of this, yeah, I'm up for it. I would definitely want to reread this again in the future, and I didn't think I would, considering this was like classed as short stories kind of thing. But yeah, I loved it so much. I really, really enjoyed it. The next book I read was this small middle grade, which was Dragonstorm, Ellis and Pathseeker by Alistair Chisholm. I gave this one 4 stars, and my notes say, great story. The kids compete to make their way through 3 different mazes. The plot threading the 3 books so far thickens. I smiled at the revelation at the end. Yes, despite all 3 books in this series so far, as this is book number 3, as I say, in the Dragonstorm series, each book has its own storyline, but there are some little bits that are threading through all of the books so far. And I feel like we are building up to something that is going to obviously become more of the story the further through these books we go. And the ending had me like, oh my goodness. Like, I was so like, oh, no. And I'm a 42-year-old woman, almost 43. It's my birthday in November. But for me to be like that with a middle grade, and this is a young middle grade as well, the writing in this is really, really small. Really, really small. It's not. It's really, really big. And as you can see, it's double space. There's lots of artwork in here. It's a young middle grade book. So for it to get that response from me after a revelation, I love Alistair Chisholm and his books. And this just proved to me once again how awesome he is at writing, because if he can do that with a young middle grade book for me, I mean, that's just skill in my eyes. I will sing about him forever and a day. So yeah, got 4 stars from me. Sticking with Alistair Chisholm, the next book I wrote was his latest published book, and that was The Consequence Girl, also by Alistair Chisholm, as I say. My note on this one says, mend the broken things. We can't remake the past, we have to fix the future. And that was the message in this book. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Alistair Chisholm always likes to leave a little message in his books that you can learn from and use as kind of like a mantra for your life. And that was the message for this one. You can't fix the past. You can't do anything about that now. It's happened. You can't change it. You can't fix it. What you can fix is the future. What you can mend is the future. What are you going to do now? What are you going to change or do now to help your future? And I loved that. And also as well in this one, our main character has a little moment where I was kind of worried about her. Like, I was like, oh my God, I hope she's going to make the right choice here. Because there was a moment where she was almost very close to making the biggest mistake and doing the wrong thing. And I like that because it kept me on the edge of my seat. So my notes continue. Ending brought a tear to my eye. More grittier than his other books. Read more YA than middle grade. Loved it though. Yes, when I was reading this one, I felt like this one was very close to being like a young adult book rather than a middle grade. So this would be really, really good for children who are just on the cusp of moving into YA, young adult, because the middle grade books are too young for them now. Maybe you have a child who is a more advanced reader than someone of their age. This would be a great book because it did read older. It did read more grittier, and as I say, there is that moment where the main character has a decision to make and she is on the cusp of possibly making the wrong one, and it just had me on the edge of my seat. Loved it, gave it 5 stars. So yeah, that's that one. The next book I read Oh my goodness, Tess of the Derbyvilles by Thomas Hardy. Now I said, when I put this on my TBR, that I'd heard a lot of people mentioning that Thomas Hardy was one of their favourite classic authors, and I wanted to know why. I know why. I know why. My notes on this say, sad Victorian Greek tragedy about the double standards of the time towards women. Can see why Thomas Hardy is liked. Yes, if you're looking for a happy ending, this is not that book. This is one of those books where you really want things to go right for our beautiful Tess. But they just don't. And the ending, oh, my heart. I was just like, no. Oh, please, no. Oh, please, no, don't do that to her. Poor lass. I was just riveted by this book. It was just so beautiful, but so dark and so horrible and miserable as well. My little black heart loved it. I did only give it 3 stars. I think that's because I listened to it by audiobook, so my attention some of the time wasn't always with it, but by the ending, I was with it. I was with it. It was a high 3 stars, almost a 4, but not quite. So yeah, that's that one. The next book I actually buddy read with one of my subscribers, the lovely Karen, who is the lady who created the point system for my book allowance that I have every month. I mention her a lot in my book haul videos, and she mentioned in her comments on my Bookgammon TBR video that she was also reading this book, The Atlas 6 by Audibly Blake, in August. Could we buddy read? Yes, of course, definitely. And you know what? We had so much fun. We separated each day a certain page allowance, and then at the end of each day we would have a bit of a chat about what had happened in those chapters. It was so much fun. I loved it so much. I'm so used to buddy reading with Charlotte now that we can go a couple of days without discussing what's actually happening in the book. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed discussing with Karen every day about what was happening, and it was so good to be able to share our thoughts and our opinions and our excitement and our joy and our trepidation of what was happening. It was just such a joy to share that experience with Karen. So thank you very much, Karen, for buddy reading this with me. Thank you so much. My notes on it say exciting, thrilling, edge of my seat in some scenes, but also confused and sideswiped on other scenes. Love the magical powers that each character has. Yes, sometimes this was like amazing and brilliant, and then other times I was like, what? So what? Which was why it was so good to be able to discuss all of that with Karen while I was reading it. I had so much fun with this. I gave this one 4 stars. The next book I read was White Cat by Holly Black. This was a reread for me, and I actually looked back at my rating that I gave this the first time round, and it actually gained a star. So last time I read this, I gave it 3 stars, but this time round, I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. So my notes say, Cassell, very similar to Kellen from Spellslinger, uses quick wit and tricks to compensate for not having family magic. Interested in where the story goes next. Yes, this very much had Spellslinger vibes for me. So if you've enjoyed the Spellslinger series, you may enjoy this series as well. Obviously, Holly Black's writing style compared to Sebastian de Castell's is completely different, but I'm saying that the characters in the books are very similar in that they don't have the family magic, so they use their wit and their quick tongue in order to sort of get by in life, and I really enjoyed it. I do have book 2 on my September TBR, so I'm very excited to get to the next book and not have it you know, sitting there waiting for me to continue like I did the last time. So I gave this one 4 stars. Next, I read my bomb book for the month, and that was The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. This is book 2 in the Wheel of Time series. She's a chonker. I listened to her by audiobook. My notes say, getting confused as all the characters are splitting off in different directions. May have to really concentrate on the next book or read along with the audiobook. Yes. This is real dense epic fantasy for me. I'm really struggling to hold on to who is who and who's doing what. So I would come to a point in the audiobook and I'd be like, why aren't they with that character? They were in the first book. Why are they off doing something different? I've missed the bit where they've been captured, or where they've gone off on their own, or where something's happened to them, and I'm like, what? Pardon, what? So I feel like I kind of need to reread this before I move on, because I just feel so lost and confused. I gave it 3 stars, and I did listen to the audiobook. The audiobook is on Audible. I have not all of the Wheel of Time series, but I think the first 5 or 6 books on Audible. So I will be listening to them via audiobook, but I just feel like I might need to just read it physically, or read along with it physically to really grasp it, because I'm lost. I'm so lost. And it's so annoying because it's not a small book. I don't want to be rereading it. But I feel like I might need to, because I have no idea what's happening. No idea at all. I'm lost and confused. So yeah. So it's definitely lived up to the bomb book, because I think I'm going to have to reread it. So that's that one. The next book, however, I'm not confused about. It's Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. This is the first book in the Ixia, I think it's called. I don't know what the series is called, but it's the first book in a new series, and I really enjoyed this one. It says, great characters, great villains, great plot and political intrigue. Excited to continue the series. Trigger warnings, however, for abuse, rape and torture, because they are mentioned in this book. I can't remember if they were physically on the page. I think it was mention of those things being done, but they were done off the page, if you know what I mean. So yeah, just to be aware of that when you do go in. I gave this one 5 stars. I loved it. Seriously, really enjoyed it. I loved the relationship that our main character, Yelena, has with the poison master. I really liked it, and I'm very excited for the next book. Sadly, unfortunately, I couldn't get it onto September's TBR because it was in a flip coin sort of thing, and it lost to the sequel to White Cat. So I will have to just try and get Magic Study, the second book, onto October's TBR instead, which would be perfect for October because, I mean, yes. But yeah, really enjoyed it. Loved the political intrigue, loved the magic system in here. Really enjoyed it. Cannot wait to move on to book 2. Next, I read my buddy read with Charlotte for the month. And we are reading the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas, and we were reading book 1, Throne of Glass, in August. This is a reread for me, but it's a first time read for Charlotte. So it was so exciting to be able to be back in this world that I know and love. I know what's going to happen, but on reread, I was discovering things that I may have missed the first time round, things that I now know are clues, but I missed them the first time round because I wasn't thinking about that at the time. So my note says, just as good if not better than the first time, because now I saw those little hints and foreshadowing that I didn't get before. That's what I meant to say, the foreshadowing. Loved it so much. We are reading Crown of Midnight in September, and it is just wonderful to be back in this world, but also really great to hear Charlotte's thoughts and opinions on these books as we go through them, because she's feeling all the feels that I got the first time round, and I get to feel those things through her and relive them all over again. So I'm not only getting the joy of seeing all those little hints and tips and foreshadowing that I missed the first time, but I'm getting the joy and the excitement of the book for the first time through buddy reading it with Charlotte. So yeah, 5 stars, loved it so much. The next book I read was actually an audiobook. I wanted to play some Animal Crossing and I didn't have any more audiobooks on my reading list, so I turned to Scribd. I got my Scribd subscription back in August, so I thought I would use it. And I found a book called The Blue Tattoo, The Life of Olive Oatman. Just a short audiobook, but oh my god, what an interesting book. Respectfully written, interestingly written, and piqued my interest to research more into the story. Enjoyed hearing her voice in the letter at the end of the book. Yes, so this story, I will give you a bit of a synopsis about this one because it wasn't on my Bookgammon TBR. So interesting. However, the book does give me, it gave me enough information, but my little historian heart knows that when you are reading about true life events, the worst thing you can do is just read the one book and think you know everything about it. Always going to have to take into account somebody's personal thoughts and opinions, even if they are trying to be neutral about the whole situation, you're always going to get something from that author's view because they're writing it. So it's best to read multiple pieces about the real event because you'll get a more broadened view of what actually happened. So I did read some of the reviews on this book as well, and there was somebody who pointed out some inconsistencies in the book, some wrong information. So again, that gives me the idea that if I want to know more about the life of Oliver Oatman, it's best for me to look at other books about this young lady as well. But as I say, at the end of the book there was an amendment to the originally published book, in the fact that the author, after her book had been published, she received a letter from somebody who had a letter from Olive Oatman herself to an auntie about things, I suppose. Olive Oatman was writing to her auntie. She'd recently gone married and she wanted to tell her auntie all about it, and she wanted to ask for her auntie to come and visit. And it was so nice to hear the letter in Olive Oatman's own writing and her voice, so to speak, directly. So that was really, really interesting. Of course but of course, if I want to know a bit more about her, then I will look at other books about her as well, because as I say, I don't want to just read the one book and think I know everything about Olive Oatman, because I don't. So that was that one, and I gave that one 3 stars. The next book I read was an ebook. I had this on my Kindle Unlimited. However, on Scribd, I found the audiobook. So I listened to the audiobook. So Dangerous Remedy is about French Revolution aftermath. Gang of misfits banding together to rescue rebels from the guillotine. And they go to save a girl who's more than she seems. And everybody seems to want her. I'm very excited to read book 2. Yes, almost as soon as I'd finished book 1, I downloaded on Scribd books 2 and 3 because this is definitely a series that I do want to continue. I gave it 3 stars. It's not one that I would go out and rush to buy, but it's definitely one that I would be interested in finishing the series. So that is that. The next book, however, I read The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. This book, my goodness, my notes. Oh no, what the beep? Why does this author torture me so? The main character, Kiva, annoyingly gullible, but I just love the characters, the plot, the intrigue, the twists, capital letters, give me the sequel now. I'm abandoning my TBR for it. I don't even care. Yeah. Next book I read was The Blood Traitor by Lynette Noni. I finished The Gilded Cage and I could not read anything else until I'd read The Blood Traitor. I needed to finish it. I don't know why Lynette Noni feels the need to end her books with cliffhangers that just have you gasping for the next book, but oh. My notes on The Blood Traitor say perfect, perfect, perfect. Colden has my heart. Oh. Author broke me, made me laugh, cry, gasp and cheer. This is my new favourite trilogy. Yes. Oh my goodness. I love this trilogy so much. I read The Prison Healer, which we got in Fairy Loot a couple of months ago. It wasn't too far back. And I knew then that I wanted to have The Gilded Cage on my TBR sooner rather than later, and managed to get it onto my August TBR. The Blood Traitor was not on my August TBR. I'd every intention of maybe picking this up maybe in October or November time sometime. But I got to the end of The Gilded Cage and I was like, I need to read The Blood Traitor. I need to know what happens next. What the hell is happening? I don't know. I need to know. And there was a moment in Blood Traitor where I got so angry with the author, I nearly slammed the book shut and threw it across the room. But not in a bad way, because she chose to do something to a particular character that I love, and I did not like it. And I was like, no. But by the end of the book, I fist bumped the air. I was so excited. I loved it. I cried. I cheered. If you are holding on to The Prison Healer and you haven't picked it up yet, just do it. I will give you some keywords to what I think really sell this book. So we have found family versus blood family, changing allegiances, and exceptional side characters. That's what I love about this book. I love the main characters, don't get me wrong, but it's the supporting cast in these books that just really give it some oomph, you know? So yeah, this is my new favourite trilogy. So we have The Prison Healer, Book 1, The Gilded Cage, Book 2, and The Blood Traitor, Book 3. Any surprises? I gave both books 5 stars. I loved it so much. So that was that. So after the amazing time that I had with The Prison Healer books 2 and 3, I knew that I needed something really strong to read afterwards, because I knew if I didn't get another good book, it would possibly put me into a slump. So I picked up Scott Westerfeld's Mirror's Edge, Book 3 in the Imposter series, because the Imposter series is almost like a companion series to the Ugly series, which, as you know, is my favourite series of all time. Not quite dethroned by the Prison Healer trilogy, but it's still so close. So I knew I needed to have a really good book, so I picked this one up. My notes on Mirror's Edge say, the first half feels like filler content, taking a long time to go nowhere. Again, the second half, much better. Ending would have been jaw-dropping if I didn't already know. So yes, unfortunately, I don't think if it was just the come down from the great time that I had with The Gilded Cage and The Blood Traitor, I don't know. But the first half of this book, I just felt like we were on a quest, but it was taking an awfully long time to get there, you know what I mean? There's a lot of travel time, and I just feel like a lot of that was filler content. I felt like this book could have got to where it was going a little bit quicker and it would have been a lot more interesting. But as I say, I still enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. So compared to the other books, which both got 5 stars in this series, yeah, it wasn't the greatest. But I don't know if that was because of the come down from The Blood Traitor and that. So I knew it might happen. When I finished The Blood Traitor, I knew that the chances were the next book was not even going to hold up to par. That's why I picked up this book, because it being Scott Westerfeld, but sadly it didn't get there. It didn't get there. So that was that book. And last but not least, the last book I read but didn't, I DNF'd. I was so bored. The Switch by Beth O'Leary. Thank you to my good friend Charlotte for sending me this to fulfill a prompt on Bookgammon board, but no. This is no. I should have known, because Marion Keyes has said in her review, so charming, so sweet and so lovely. I don't like charming, sweet and lovely. I like hot, steamy and angsty. So I think when it comes to contemporaries, I like them when there's hot, steamy romance. And little old lady swapping lives with her 30-something-year-old granddaughter, not my thing, I discovered. I think I got about 100 or so pages in, and I was already starting to skim. So I realised at that point, no, I'm not interested. So yes, sadly, I DNF'd this book. So that was that one. So let's move on to my stats then. The total number of books I read, minus the 2 DNFs, was 14 books. The physical pages I read was 3,819 pages. The ebook pages I read was 0, because I chose to read Dangerous Remedy by audiobook rather than by ebook, which was what it was originally put into. But I decided that was okay because it still got an ebook off my ebook list. So the audio hours of books that I own a physical copy of was 41 hours and 1 minute. And then audio hours of books that I've borrowed and I don't own a physical copy of was 16 hours and 2 minutes. The star ratings, I gave 5 books 5 stars in the month of August. It was a good month. I gave 4 books 4 stars, 5 books 3 stars. There were no 2 stars, no 1 stars, but there was those 2 DNFs. For genres, I read no thrillers and no contemporaries because I DNF'd my contemporary. I read 1 classic, 2 middle grades, no mangas or graphic novels. I read 1 non-fiction, yay for non-fiction, and I read 10 fantasies or sci-fis. The origin of the books that I owned, that I read, 12 books I physically owned and 2 books I borrowed. The format of the books that I read 10 physically, I read 4 audibly, and I read 0 books ebookly. The binding of those books that I read, 4 were hardback and 8 were paperback. The genders of the authors, 5 were male and 8 were female. So the longest book I read of the month was The Great Hunt at 669 pages. However, I did read it audibly. The shortest book I read was, of course, Dragonstorm, Ellis and Pathseeker by Alistair Chisholm, which was 146 pages. The oldest book I read was Tess of the Derbyvilles, which was written in 1891 by Thomas Hardy. And the newest book I read was The Blood Traitor by Lynette Noni, which was published in June 2022 this year. The highest rated book on Goodreads was The Consequence Girl by Alistair Chisholm at 4.65. So yay for Alistair Chisholm. So happy about that. And the lowest rated book was the audiobook, The Blue Tattoo, The Life of Olive Oatman, with a Goodreads rating of 3.50. That could be because it is a non-fiction book, so chances are that it's not been read as much as some of the other books, but also a lot of people choose not to rate non-fiction because they feel like they don't want to comment on the life or the lives of real life people. So there could be a number of reasons for that being the lowest rated. My least favourite was, of course, The Switch by Beth O'Leary. It was just too sweet, too adorable, and I'm not about that. But my favourite book of the month, the one that I absolutely love, and the one that I would recommend to you, is The Blood Traitor. Yes, it is book 3 in the Prison Healer trilogy, but the whole trilogy as a whole was just the best. I have had such a great time reading this trilogy. To be honest, as soon as I'd finished The Blood Traitor, the only thing I wanted to do was go back and pick The Prison Healer back up and read it all over again, just so I could stay in this world with these characters and just live the whole thing again. So my recommendation for the month of August is pick up The Prison Healer and read the trilogy. But I will say this, you are going to want to have all 3 books to hand because each book does land end with a cliffhanger, so you are going to want to move on to the next book until you've finished all 3 in one sitting, because it is just that good. So that is it. That is my August reading wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. Is there any books on this list that I've read this month that you have similar feelings for? Or maybe one of my worst books was one of your favourite books? I don't know. Maybe I might have loved a book that you absolutely despised. I don't know. Let's talk about it in the comments section below this video. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!